All right, folks. In Europe, of course, all eyes on Deutsche Bank as we head into this weekend. I'm going to bring in Tressa's chief economist, Daniel Lacalle. And Dan, first I want to get an idea. It felt like it happened suddenly. What's pushed Deutsche Bank now into the spotlight? Why is this the focus right now?
Well, I think that what you're seeing right now is the domino effect of the so-called AT1 bonds, which are the contingent convertible bonds that banks issued in Europe in order to improve their capital, in order to strengthen their balance sheet. Now, being convertible bonds, as you know, Charles, they generate a very big risk when the equity leads the bond and then the bond leads the equity down further. So what is basically happening is after the Credit Suisse merger or takeover by UBS and the almost hidden bailout from the government that pushed 50 billion into Credit Suisse, the bondholders that held these AT1 bonds, these convertible bonds, simply started to get out of them because they see that the risk is enormous. And think about this: the Deutsche Bank convertible bonds give a 19% yield, so that shows how risky they are.
Yeah, I mean, 19% is buyer beware, but by the same token, I think a couple of days ago it was Dan Loeb saying, you have a contract, right? Now people are learning those aren't really bonds, wink, wink. Well, I know earlier today Deutsche Bank paid off some, or they redeemed some of the a higher level of bonds, but that's one of the key issues out there. What does it mean for all of banking in Europe? How precarious is the banking situation in all of Europe?
Well, the situation in Europe is much more dangerous than in the United States. Let's start from what the size of the banking system is in Europe, which is about between 190 to 200% of GDP in most economies. So it's very, very large in terms of assets relative to GDP in the major economies. That compares with less than a third of that in the United States. A very important factor as well is that the European banks did not leave the 2011 crisis with a balance sheet that was strong enough. Right. However, what they have been doing is increasing core capital as much as they could in a period of negative rates. And here is the key issue. In the European Union, the European Central Bank implemented negative rates. And negative rates have decimated the asset base, the profitable asset base, the lending side of European central European banks.
I want to just bring that highlight that, because I wondered out loud for a long time, how could there be trillions and trillions of dollars at negative yield? And it seems like that's coming back. But I got a minute to go, and I do want to ask about the faith in all the major players involved in this drama. Right on our side of the pond, you've got Yellen, you've got Powell, you got the Biden administration, you got Lagarde, who came out today with more comments. What's gonna? Do you think that they have the wherewithal, the ring posts thing, to fix this before it gets out of control?
Oh, certainly, because right now it is a relatively manageable situation. Right now, central banks are hiking rates, which makes sense, as the previous commentator was saying, and at the same time, they're providing liquidity to avoid a widespread banking crisis. If central banks decided to U-turn and go into negative rates again, then the problem would not be just a problem of liquidity or maybe one bank suffering losses in their asset base. It would be a much more severe crisis. Right. And let's remember that the European banking system doesn't have the level of collateral and liquidity providers that the U.S. banking system has. It's significantly more, let's say, conservative, right, but at the same time, riskier.
So the bottom line is that you have confidence, but it is a precarious situation. Daniel, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All righty. I want to go to Brookmount Capital Senior Portfolio Manager.